Claude's MCP feature is already changing the game. Imagine generating complete AI workflows and agents from a single prompt. No hours of mapping, no guesswork. Today, I'm going to show you how to take a simple prompt and turn it into a fully structured workflow using Claude and n8n. And by the end of the video, you will be automating tasks like email sorting, Slack notifications, and Google Sheet updates within seconds. Here's a scenario. Imagine you want an AI agent that sorts your email, sends message, updates your spreadsheet, and even triggers Slack notifications. Normally, this could have taken hours to plan and build. With Claude MCP, you get a full structure almost instantly. First, you need Claude on your desktop. So go to Claude website, pick your OS, Windows or Mac, and then install it. Next, let's open it and sign in into your account. And here's a hot tip. If you already have a cloud account, use the same login. Otherwise, it will create a new one. Once you sign in, you will see Cloud interface like so. And this is where all the magic would happen. Next, we will need Node.js. So this will allow Claude to communicate with n8n via MCP. We'll go to Node.js.org, download the installer for your system and install it. Accept all the defaults like so. And once you've installed it, check your version in the terminal. You can punch in command like node-v like this. Node.js is essential, so remember not to skip this step. Next, we're going to set up your n8n MCP server. This is what allows Claude to communicate with n8n and trigger workflow automatically. So let's dive right in. First, we'll start with heading to a GitHub page for the MCP server. If you need a link, simply log into our Skill community and grab it from our resource hub. We also got a full library of premium n8n templates, AI automations, and behind the scenes build in which you won't find on YouTube, all within our Skill community. Okay, once you're in the GitHub page, you'll see a command under a quick start section. Copy that entire command. It's going to install and run the MCP server locally on your machine. Now, open the terminal if you're on Mac or Linux, which by the way is equivalent to command prompt or your PowerShell on Windows if you're using Windows. Make sure Node.js is installed before you proceed. Otherwise, your MCP server will not be able to run. Okay, now, once you have your Node.js ready, paste the command that you have copied from GitHub into your terminal, then press enter. If this is the first time you're running this command, the system will likely ask for confirmation. So just type yes, aka Y, and then press enter. Your terminal will now start to execute the command. You will see a series of logs scroll by as the server installs dependencies and starts running, like so. Okay. Once complete, you'll see a message indicating that n8n MCP server is now active and listening. This is your local hub for connecting Claude to your n8n, allowing your AI agents to start to be able to communicate with all the tools and workflows that you have now set up. Keep this terminal window open while you're working with Claude. Otherwise, if you close it, the MCP server will stop to run, and Claude won't be able to execute any workflow until you restart the whole thing. Now that your MCP server is running, the next step is to connect your Claude to the system so that your AI can actually generate workflows and trigger n8n nodes. Okay, so let's start this by opening Claude again on your desktop and navigate the setting, developer, and then click edit config. Here's where it gets very important. You're gonna need the full configuration JSON file from the GitHub repository that we navigated before. So on that page, scroll down to the full configuration section. This JSON contains all the necessary settings that tells Claude how to communicate with the MCP server, which includes node mapping, workflow handling, and API endpoints. Think of it like the bridge between your AI and n8n. Without it, Claude can't talk to your workflows. Copy the entire JSON file. I must call out, editing this file incorrectly can break the connection and you will have to start all over again. Okay, now let's move on. Paste the JSON into the edit config window within Claude, and you'll see two critical fields that you must update. Number one, n8n API URL. This is the URL where your MCP server is running. So if you're running it locally, you will see something like this, where you'll call out localhost. This is where Claude would send the request to. Number two, API key. This is the key generated in your n8n server. It authenticates Claude, so only authorized requests can trigger your workflow. So you can generate this key via your n8n setting under n8n API here, like so. So let's go ahead and create this key for now, okay? Once this information are entered, then press save, okay? It will refresh your Claude like so, and you should now be able to see MCP connection active. It's green, okay? This confirms the Claude can send requests to your n8n, starts to read workflow structures, and start to be able to also generate automated workflow for you. Every time you make changes to your workflow or update Claude, double check this JSON to make sure, because even small typos within URL will break the connection and stop workflow executions. Treat this file like the brain of your MCP setup. Once Claude is connected to your n8n MCP server, the next step is to add the tools your AI agent will interact with. This is where your workflow will start to come into life. In Claude, go to Tools, like so, and then click Add Tools. You can add Gmail, Slack, Notion, or any other apps that your workflow would need. Each tool is essentially an endpoint that Claude will send actions to. Now let's talk about Connectors panel within Claude. This is where the magic happens for interacting with external tools. Okay, so on your Claude desktop app, look for this search icon here and the magnifier icon on the top bar, or you can navigate by pressing the plus button next to the input field label. How can I help you today? Like so, okay? Clicking this would open the connector or the search menu, which is essential for your gateway to interact with Claude and the apps like Notion, Gmail, Slack, Google Drive, and of course, everything will be routed via n8n. Here's the key piece, the n8n MCP connector. When you enable n8n MCP, Claude can trigger workflow that you've built within n8n, send and receive data between Claude and n8n, and start to perform action like starting workflow, fetching data, processing logics, all automatically. So in this next stage, within this panel, you will see n8n MCP listed amongst all other connectors with the toggle switch button here, okay? Make sure this toggle is turned on, which will tell Claude that it has access to your n8n environment. Once this is enabled, you can interact with it directly by typing commands like so. And this is how Claude Reasoning connects with the automation. MCP allows Claude to analyze the data and then trigger your n8n workflow seamlessly. Now we move on to the core, which is creating a Claude project. Okay, so now we click on this new project here within Claude and then give it a name like Workflow Builder, whatever. Naming is actually quite important because if you plan to maintain multiple projects, it helps keep the context organized. So in this occasion, I've used Workflow Builder, but you can obviously choose a name that fits your use case. Next, let's paste your system prompt. I've included an optimized prompt within our Skill community, so be sure to go and check it out and grab the link. This prompt gives Claude essential context like instructions, examples, tool references, and even SOPs. Without it, Claude will still generate the workflows, but it might not be able to match your standard or use your preferred tool setups. Okay, after the system prompt, paste your workflow prompt, the specific instruction for the workflow you want. For example, you might write, create an AI agent that reads unread Gmail messages, log the data into a Google spreadsheet, and sends a summary via Slack, and then update the to-do list. Claude will use the system and workflow prompt together to reason through the steps, map the nodes, and start to trigger actions and generate a JSON structure for this n8n. At the end of the step, Claude outputs JSON that includes trigger, action nodes, node logics, and instruction nodes. This JSON is the start of the structure within your n8n, but it's not the final yet. It does give you 30 to 40% of the workflow, so you start to save a lot of hours, not just in planning, but building. Import the JSON into n8n, you'll see all the nodes: trigger, action, Slack, Google Sheets, Gmail. Some nodes might show red. This just means credentials needs updating. So double click, add in all the credentials, and you'll be ready. Now I'll trigger it manually. You'll see the workflow starts to execute, and here Slack message will send, Google Sheet will start to update, like so, and emails are being sorted, which is pretty cool. This is powerful but not perfect yet. Claude gives you 30 to 40% of the build, like I said before, so you'll still need to tweak your environment. So let's check the trigger, confirms the credentials, and validate all the outputs. Over time, the project context will allow Claude to produce smarter results. Always test each node individually at first, fix errors before triggering the full workflow, save time, avoid headaches. And that's it! You now know how to connect Claude to n8n, generate workflow, import JSON, and trigger automations. If you want the full guide, the JSON and optimized prompt, join our AI Automation Hub for live coaching, premium n8n templates, and more AI automations blueprints. Claude MCP won't replace your expertise, but it will save you so much more time in planning and executing. Start building smarter, faster, and watch your automation stack grow.